first thing we're going to do is open 3 data sets into Power BI. The sales data from the E. Enid store, P. Perkins store, and S. Stillwater store. Now the first thing I'm going to do is save this under a name. And you're going to see here I'm a little bit indecisive of what I should name it, but I ended up naming it GS for grocery store, then PBI for Power BI. And then once it's done saving, I want to go get my data. So I'm going to go home, get data. It's a text file. I'm going to find the text file and I'm going to open it. And when it opens it, it's going to open in a big box like this. And let me take a moment to show you what these data are. And here's the table of data. So these are data that are meant to mimic data that a grocery store might have for its sales. And so we have a number of different columns here. The first column, SKU, that's a stock keeping unit number. That's usually the barcode of the product that identifies what food product it was that was purchased. Date, that is the date of the transactions. Store is the store it was purchased. Here, this is the Enid store. And then you have the column for quantity of sales. That's the quantity of units that were purchased on that day. And then price is the price of the SKU that day. And the index, that's a unique index number for each row of the data. So we can see here on January 1st, 2022 for food product SKU 892-96135 in the Enid store, 436 units of that product were sold. They were all sold at a price of $12.82. We're going to go ahead and load these data. And then you'll see the table name will appear in the upper right. Yeah, you see sales data E, and when you click on that, it shows you all the columns for that table. And if you want to see the table, you can click on that table view there, and there you go. You have all the data showed. And then next, we're just going to repeat the process to get the other 2 data sets, the data from the Perkins store and the Stillwater store. Whenever you have data that occur across time, like our sales data or sales for each product on a different day, you want to create a new table that is a calendar, automatically generated calendar. So we're going to go to New Table, and name this new table Calendar, and we're going to set it equal to Calendar Auto. And when you do that, Power BI automatically generates a calendar table, and you can see it's automatically going to have the first day is the first day of our data, last day of our data. And then we want to go to Model View and tell Power BI that the date in our calendar table refers to the same thing as the date in the Enid data and the Perkins data and the Stillwater data. And we do that by just doing this, dragging date up from one table to another. And whenever you create relationships between tables, that's what Power BI refers to as a model. And you can see when that relationship is made, you then have a line connecting one table to another. Now, we're also going to want to have in our calendar table, in addition to one column with the precise date, we want one column with the month name and one column with the month number. To do that, we're going to go to our calendar table. We're going to select New Column. And first, we're going to make one that says the month name. So we just name this month name. That's going to be the column name. And we say the format of this date is just going to be the month name. And we do that by specifying the equation like this. And now January 3rd, 2022 is referred to as January, just like any other day in January. Now we're also going to want to know the month number. You'll see why later. We call this column month number, and we just say that it's equal to month, and then in parentheses, calendar date. And now any date in January will have the month number 1. Any date in December will have the month number 12. Right now we have a separate sales data table for each store, but now we want one table that has all the sales data for all 3 stores. We can do this using the append command. We can do this here, because they all have identical column names and formats for each table. We're going to first import the Enid sales data again, rename it sales data all, and then we're going to append the data from the Perkins and the Stillwater stores. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to import the data again. So it's a text file where the data are, and I'm going to choose the Enid data. I'm going to import it just like we did before, but I'm going to change the name of that data set from sales data E to sales data all. But it still doesn't have all the data yet. It only has the Enid data. So now I need to transform the data on a query. So I look for transform data and transform data. And now I'm going to make sure I'm selecting sales data all as the table to be modified. And then I'm going to do an append query. And here I'm going to tell it there's 3 or more tables. Now my sales data all has the Enid data, so I just need to add the Perkins data and the Stillwater data to it. I hit OK, and there's no like submit button yet, and so all I have to do is exit out and then say yes, I want to make those changes. And now I have my table sales data all that has all the sales data for the Enid and Perkins and the Stillwater stores. Now I want to make a table showing sales at each store. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to select, first I'm going to select matrix so I get the table I want. And then I'm going to make sure I've selected sales data, all. And for the values, I'm interested in the sum of all quantity sales. So I'm going to put that in values. And in the rows, I want store. So it's going to give me a matrix like this. It's going to tell me the total sales, quantity sales at each of the 3 stores. While we're at this table, I want you to look at it. So look closely. There's something off about this table. I'm going to give you a couple seconds of silence. Look closely at this table. Haha, I got you, didn't I? Well, I knew you were probably getting bored, maybe a little sleepy, so I just thought you needed a little jolt to wake you up. Let's now get rid of the matrix table, and we're going to make a bar chart of sales at each store. So I'm going to choose clustered column chart, and for the Y values, I want the sum of all quantity sales at the store, so I'm going to bring that down to the Y-axis. And then on the X-axis, I want store, so I want the sum of all sales at each store in the bar chart. So I'll put that X-axis, and now I have this. And they just happen to be equal the way I generated the data. For each store, we have the sum of quantity sales. Now suppose I want to know the sales of a particular SKU. I could take SKU and bring it down to filter. I'm going to change it to basic filter. Now I could just select one of the SKUs. And notice the Y values are going to change. The total quantity sales do tend to be the same across each store. But whenever I select a different SKU, I get a different bar chart showing the total sales of each SKU at the places. And if I want to see the data as a table, I just go up there and choose see the table, and it shows me this. Usually when stores are analyzing sales data, they're not interested in the quantity of sales, but the revenues. And so we don't have revenues as a column here, so we want to create one. We're going to select new column, and we're going to name this new column revenues, and we're just going to say it's equal to the price from these data times the quantity sales from these data. Now we're going to create a bar chart showing total revenues for each month in each store, and you're going to see why we needed in that calendar table to make one column with the month name and another column with the month number. To accomplish this, we're going to go over, we're going to select cluster column chart again. And for our data, we want revenues to be the height of the column. So we're going to choose revenues and bring it down to y-axis. And then we want to report revenues first by store, so we bring store down to x-axis, but also by month. And so we're going to bring the month name down under x-axis as well. Now we have a nice little chart showing for each store and for each store each month these sales. But look, something's a bit off, like it's putting the month names in alphabetical order when we want it to be in order in which they occur during the year. We want it to go January, February, March, and so on. So what we want is to order the months by the month number, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. So we choose month name and we say sort the column by month number. And now when we do that, now it's right. It goes January, February, March, April, and so on. A few other things I want to point out that you can do with Power BI. If we want to change something like the font size, the font type of the chart, there's this option here to format the visual. You can change how the axes are shown, and there's some other data analysis tools you can add to it.